Let's start with something called as group A streptococcus. It's a strep pyogenus, and pyogenus means it gives pyogenic infections. Why it's group A? It's group A because it's classified by lentified grouping, which is based on carbs in their cell wall. So if they have carbs in their cell wall, we call them group A. Another thing is that their shape is gram. The shape of them is cocci. It means they're grape-like, and they're gram positive. It means they retain this purple stain. The arrangement is in chains, and they're arranged in a line of beads. Another thing is they are beta hemolytic. It means they are quite aggressive towards RBCs. They completely make a clear zone of blood agar on the blood agar. How to recognize in the lab? They are highly encapsulated. It means they have an encapsule. They have a capsule made up of hyaluronic acid. Our body also makes hyaluronic acid, so that's how they can hide under from our immune system. They have bacitracin sensitive. It means they are bacitracin sensitive. It means bacitracin is like it's a drug. So if you put bacitracin on culture plate, the group A strep dies. Okay, so group A strep dies, and group B is resistant to bacitracin. That's very important. So group A is different from group B in, first of all, carbs on their cell wall and bacitracin sensitivity. Group A is bacitracin sensitive. Another thing that they have is there's something called a streptolysin O. Well, this enzyme, it breaks down the RBCs. It is beta hemolytic, and we also make ASO antibodies against it. And we test this ASO antibodies for acute and chronic infection. And this ASO titer can confirm the past infection. So something called as streptolysin O. Another thing is that they have DNAs. Again, this DNase enzyme, it breaks down the DNA in a pus. And why it breaks down in a pus? So that it can spread faster in a body. That's the physical meaning. Another thing about this, they are catalase negative. So that's the difference between aureus and this streptococcus group A. So staphylococcus aureus, they are catalase positive. It means they have this catalase function that helps them to stop the bleach formation. But here, these streptococcus group A can be destroyed by the bleach formation from our body. So that's the physical meaning of catalase negative. What other thing is that they have something called as virulence. What virulence factor they have? They have something called as M protein. So what M protein is that it's anti-phagocytic, so it blocks the phagocytosis. But this M protein can also look similar to human protein in the heart, right? And what it does is it mimics the our cells, right? Our cells in our heart, right? So it does something called as molecular mimicry, and it leads to rheumatic fever. Okay, so this M protein is responsible for antiphagocytic and rheumatic fever and molecular mimicry. I hope you understand it. So M stands for molecular mimicry, and M also stands for mitral valve. It usually attacks on the mitral valve. Okay. So another thing is they have streptokinase. So kinase is just, it adds a phosphate group. So streptokinase means it converts plasminogen to plasmine. It is converting soluble into insoluble. So it's a clot lighting. Okay, it breaks down the clot. So we give this thing in MI. Okay, in myocardial infarction, because MI usually happens because of clot, right? So streptokinase, another thing to remember. Diseases it can cause is, number one, pyogenic diseases, toxin mediated diseases, and post streptoimmune complications. Cool. Nothing really hard. The number one thing is pyogenic. Let's talk about pyogenic. Pyogenic means pus forming, of course. So pus can be formed by these three: pharyngitis, impetigo, and another thing they can cause is erysipelas, and it's a skin rash. I think about erysipelas as peeling. So erysipelas, cool. Toxin mediated diseases are, number one is scarlet fever. So it's a scarlet fever. It means it's a scarlet color. It means strawberry tongue. Another thing is face sparing widespread rash, and it's pharyngitis mediated. So pharyngitis can happen in this scarlet fever as well. One of the most important thing is called TSLS, toxic shock like syndrome. It's a toxic like, so it is mediated by something called a super antigen, SPEA and SPEC. So this group A streptococcus, right, has three subtype: A, B, and C. So A and B. So here is it: A and B and C. Cool. So strep type A and type C can cause this TSLS, toxic shock like syndrome, and subtype B can cause necrotic fasciitis. And it's really a very dangerous situation when infection is happening in the necrotic tissue. Okay, so we have to remove this body part. Okay. Other thing it can cause is post streptococcal immune complication. What happens that you get this infection, and after this infection you get something called as rheumatic fever or post streptococcal glomerulonephritis. What happens here is that you get an infection, you get, for example, pharyngitis, and then after pharyngitis, if you are not treating the pharyngitis properly, what will happen is that you will end up with rheumatic fever, and it's due to M protein molecular mimicry. M stands for molecular mimicry, M also stands for mitral valve. The Jones criteria is followed, and it happens by post pharyngitis and not post skin infections. Okay, what happens after post skin infection is post streptococcal glomerulonephritis. Again, it's a nephritic syndrome, not a nephrotic syndrome. So lot of blood loss happens here, nephritic. What happens is that a lot of immune complex depositions happens in the kidney, and the color of the urine is a cola color. You have puffiness, you have hypertension, very typical in glomerulonephritis, and it is type 3 hypersensitivity mediated, and it occurs usually after 2 weeks post infection of post skin. Okay, so it's a post pharyngitis or post skin infection, but rheumatic fever usually happens after post pharyngitis, not post skin infection. The treatment is classic penicillin, and if we can check the ASO titer, because we want to check it. Why? Because it can confirm if it's an acute RH fever or a chronic glomerulonephritis. Because if you have had it chronically, so it can lead to rheumatic fever, or that's very important to know ASO titer. So a great image to remember this group A streptococcus is these beads, and I hope you understand these beads are, I don't want to say they are for something. They are really classical beads. They are A beads, A and A. Okay, they are A beads. So A is the group A, and M is the M protein that mimics the molecule, and it leads to mitral valve, rheumatic fever, which is post pharyngital, and this is the whole story of streptococcus group A. Group A because they have curves in their cell wall, and they are bacitracin sensitive. So that's very important because group B are bacitracin resistant. So that's the whole story.